It's been 90 years since the inception of Social Security. Nearly 70 million people receive monthly Social Security benefits to the tune of $1.5 trillion every year. For some, Social Security is their only source of income. For others, it's not. But for everyone that receives Social Security benefits, it's an important part of their retirement income. Every year during the month of October, Social Security announces whether or not there will be a cost of living adjustment, an increase to people's checks the coming year. That number actually just came out today. So in this video, we're going to talk about what the cost of living adjustment will be for 2026 and show you exactly how they arrived at that number. And then for those of you that are not yet taking Social Security, I'm going to show you how that COLA will also benefit you. I want to begin by giving you just a little bit of a history of the Social Security legislation. It began, of course, and passed in 1935. Took a couple years actually for them to get everything organized. But what happened then after that 2-year period, in 1937, Social Security taxes began to be deducted from people's checks. Now, what was interesting back then is the Social Security tax was actually 1% by the employee and, of course, matched by the employer 1%. And the maximum income subject to Social Security taxes back in 1937 was actually $3,000. So if you had $3,000, that was the max. 1% would be what? So someone paid a whopping $30 a year into Social Security. Now, what's interesting is we compare that today, fast forward the clock almost 90 years, the tax is now 6.20, matched by the employer 6.20, and the maximum income subject to taxes is $176,100 this year. Okay, so we're talking substantial more amount of money, of course. Okay, so whole point is that's when they began to fund the program. And then in 1940 was the first check. And so the lady who actually drew the first check, her name was Ida Mae Fuller. She was a school teacher and then became a legal secretary, bookkeeper. And so she is working and paying into Social Security actually just for 3 years, 37, 38, 39. And then she files a claim in November of 1939, and they issue her the very first Social Security check in January of 1940. And that check was $22.54. And so the interesting thing is Ms. Fuller would live to be 100 years old. In fact, they said that she took out of the Social Security system just a little bit shy of $23,000. So she paid in very little and, of course, lived a long time. And that's the way it was for people who were just turning 65 when this program was very early. They got a lot more out than they had put in, and certainly she was an example of that. All right, a couple things about increases. And so from 1940 to 1974, there was no method of consistent increases. In other words, there was no formula that they followed. There were some increases at times, but it was just basically Congress deciding that they were going to give an increase. So it really took an act of Congress to raise those amounts up. And what was interesting, there would be several years there would be no increases, and then we'd go into a year where there's going to be an election and there would be an increase. And so it could be very politically motivated, and so they wisely decided done with that system. So they did that for almost 25 years. But then, beginning in 1975, they began to have a formula to follow, to have consistent cost of living adjustments. Okay, and so that's what I'm going to teach you as we talk about that. So ever since this point in time, they've had the formula to follow. Let me show you what it looks like. So to determine the cost of living adjustment, what is happening, there's an index, and there's, of course, lots of indexes that the government tracks. But the CPIW, which is Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers, they're tracking goods and services that segment of the population is actually buying. And so what they do is they compare one year to another. So we have 2024, and they're going to compare it to 2025. And so what they do is they look at the third quarter, which would be July, August, September. So we have the third quarter, 2024, compared to the third quarter of 2025. And again, goods and services will be transportation, medical expenses, housing, food, a variety of things that they're tracking. And if these cost more a year later, well, then this number is going to be larger, and we're going to have a cost of living adjustment. But if this index here is actually lower, then we would not have a cost of living adjustment. So my whole point is this is the formula they're going to follow. And let's look at the exact numbers now for 24 and 25. 2025. All right, so I'm going to put up on the board some of the cost of living adjustments we had here just in the last 5 years, so you can kind of get a feel for what's happened. Very low in 2021, 1.3, 2022, 5.9. This actually was the largest one in years, 2023 of 8.7, 3.2, and then 2.5. So we have 5 years here, and the average has actually been about 4.32. Over that 5-year period of time. And so the question is, what is it going to be for you for the cost of living for this next year, 2026? And the number, again, just came out today. And what is it? 2.8%. All right, we'll look at some actual dollar amounts in just a second, but I want to remind you, we're going to show you how they arrived at this number exactly, and most importantly, for those people that are not yet on Social Security, how it is that they're going to benefit from that cost of living adjustment as well. All right, so here's the CPI-W numbers for the third quarter of 24 and 25. And so they take all 3 months, of course, add that up, and then they'll divide it by 3, so that gives us this third quarter average. Again, those goods and services compared to 2025, and those are the numbers that you can see they're larger, which is good as far as getting a cost of living adjustment. So they took the 3 numbers, and this is the one we were waiting on. It just came out today, so now this could be completed. And so average it out, 317. So because that number's larger, going to be able to see this cost of living adjustment. All right, so let's do the math on this. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 2025 less the amount in 2024 to find that difference, and then divide that out. So let's do this together. So we got 317.265 average for 2025 minus the average for the third quarter in 2024. We're going to divide that then back by 2024, and that's going to give us our cost of living adjustment. And that is going to be 2.8%. So that's the math behind that, okay? Now let's look at to see exactly how that 2.8% is going to affect people's checks. All right, so right now the average retiree, this is a person that's drawing their Social Security benefits off their own work record, those top 35 years. Retirement rate now is 1976, and we have the 2.8% to it. You're going to see it's going up about about $55 on a monthly basis. A widow drawing the survivor benefits, or a widower as well, 1837 average, again going up to 1888, so just a little over $50 with that increase. Someone that's on disability, 1582, again going up about what's $44 for that. And then this would be someone that's max, and that just simply means that every year they had the income of the max that was subject to Social Security taxes. And so if they took right now at full retirement age in 2025, that check would have been $4,018. The max, someone who paid the max tax again next year would be $4,130. Now, I want you to know there are people making more than this. In fact, lots of people making more because they didn't take it full retirement age. They actually took it age 70 and grew that account. If their full retirement age was 66, they grew it a full 32%. If it was at 67, they grew that a full 24%. So again, some actually get more than that, but that would be the max someone would get if they had that taxable earnings at the max and they took at full retirement age. So what Social Security is going to do is they're going to calculate a number for us that's called the primary insurance amount. And they do that when we turn 62. So at 62, they establish our primary insurance amount. And the way they do this is they take the top 35 years of our earnings. Top 35 years, the highest earnings during that time. So if you work 40, they're going to take top 35. If you only work 30 years, you're going to have some zeros in there. And then they take those years of earnings and they index those up, because what you made 25, 30 years ago, certainly lower. They want to bring that up to real dollars in today's economy. So they have an index, a wage index they apply that to, and they apply that index up to the wages you made at age 60. And so for 61 and 62, that would just be face value. So they've indexed it up, and what they're looking for is a top 35 years index up. They're going to have what we call lifetime earnings. Lifetime earnings. And then they're going to take that lifetime earnings and they're going to divide that by 420 months. Okay? And then that is going to equal a number that's very important that is called the average index monthly earnings, okay? And that average index monthly earnings, what they're going to do then is they're going to take that number, and let me give an example. Let's say we have lifetime earnings of $2,100,000. Sounds like a lot, but frankly, it's really not over a 35-year period of time, but we have $2.1 million. If I divide that by 420, I would have an average index monthly earnings of $5,000. And then that number there is going to be, then they're going to apply that to some bin points to actually come up with my primary insurance amount. And so the way they do this, we have these bin points. So the first bin point is $1,226. And what we get of that is 90%. The next bin point is $7,391, and we get actually 32% of the difference between 1226 up to 7391. And if there's anything above 7391, we get 15% of that. And these amounts here are then basically building my Social Security primary insurance amount. So let's do the math real quickly. So I've got $1,226, and I get 90% of that. So the first part of my Social Security check is $1,103.40. Okay, first bin point. Now the difference between 1226 is 7391. I get 32%. Now I stopped at 5,000, so it's going to be the difference between 1226 and 5,000. So let's put that in. So that number is 3774. I get 32% of that. So let me put that in. So the second part of my Social Security check is $1,207.68. All right, now I didn't make above the 7391, so that part over here on this bin point would be 0. And so what I have here is $1,207.60 and $1,103.40. And this is going to be my primary insurance amount, $2,311 even. That's my PIA, okay? And so what happens is if I were to take my Social Security benefits at my full retirement age, that's what I get I get my PIA. But this has been calculated of course at 62. And so what they're going to do then is this PIA, as long as I'm not taking my Social Security benefits, then they're going to recalculate this every year. And so what happens? They're going to apply this 2.8% cost of living adjustment to that 2311. So 2.8%, increase it by $64. So now I have a new PIA the following year of $2,375.79. Okay? And so my whole point is, every single year, they continue to add those cost of living adjustments to your PIA, and then once you've decided to take your Social Security benefits, then that PIA would be your full retirement age amount. If I take that PIA early, I'm going to get less, basically about 6% a year. If I go beyond my full retirement age, then I'm going to get more. They're going to do what we call delayed retirement credit, so I actually can grow that 8% a year until I reach age 70. And all I'm trying to teach you is that you benefit from the cost of living adjustment because they're going to continue to recalculate your primary insurance amount until you turn on your benefits. All right? And so everyone definitely benefited from that 2.8% increase. Some going to be in their check, others is increasing that primary insurance amount, which is a big deal because that's what the basis of your full retirement age amount benefit is going to be. The reason that we're so familiar with Social Security and able to share all this information with you is that we've been in the Medicare business now for almost 17 years. And really, Medicare and Social Security go hand in glove. A lot of people are making those decisions around the same time. And so if there's anything that we can do for you, if you're ready to retire and go on Medicare, you're turning 65 and not sure what to do, we'd love to be a resource for you. We help people, thousands of them every single month, to make sure that they're making the right choice with Medicare and they have confidence in those choices. So if you're new to Medicare and just beginning to explore your options and you want to be sure you're making the right choice, there's actually 2 ways that you can learn a lot about Medicare, and I have an Essentials workshop. It's 50 minutes long and it's packed full of great information. You'll learn the ins and outs of everything about Medicare. And so there's 2 ways you can access that. There's a QR code here below the screen. You can take your phone out and take a picture of that. Or you can see in the bottom section here, a comment section, there's actually a link that you can click on that and watch the workshop as well.